Hey, good morning. I'm Andy Roberts, talking to you from the last day of NetApp Insight, which has been a great show. The first time coming back to Insight for me since the last time I presented here presented in 2007 was the first time I presented with NetApp. Last time I went to was 2012. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is some of the basics around OpenStack, how it breaks down, things within the architecture. I'm going to talk about some of the questions and the things that I talk to customers about, or prospects, or things that I think are really useful and interesting to know. And then my chosen specialized subject, being part of NetApp, talk about some of the storage areas around that. So some of the basics and background around OpenStack then. So what is OpenStack? Where did it come from? So OpenStack was founded as an open source project, and it came really out of Rackspace and NASA. And it was the same sort of year that SolidFire was actually born there as well. And it's an automated and very scalable infrastructure as a service system. It kind of allows you to treat all of the things that you put underneath your OpenStack system as code, to be able to speak to it with APIs, to be able to automate everything that you do. It's a very modular system, the way it breaks down, and you have these key services, so things called Keystone, so the authentication, the key part of that. Things like Nova, which controls the compute element, and Horizon, which is the UI. My chosen specialized subject, the thing I'll talk about more, is Cinder storage, so Cinder block storage, and also then Glance, where the images go, and Swift, which is the object store. We'll talk about some of the differences of those things as well. Underlying architecture and how OpenStack's built, it has a Python code base using things like standard open source tools to bring it together. Usually you deploy at least one or two management servers, which will run your things like your Keystone services, and then you run Nova and those kind of things on your compute environment. And those sort of standard hypervisors that run underneath it are things like KVM. You can also do things like VMware and those kind of things underneath it, but it does tend to be largely KVM, the things that people use. And where we integrate and what SolidFire and NetApp do is come in underneath the Cinder services, and we'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. So why OpenStack, and what can you do with it? What are good use cases for it? And I think this is always worth thinking about when you're looking to deploy it and do it as well. You know, for people who really want to do really entirely automated infrastructure and systems, guys like eBay, PayPal, those kind of things, building those things out, they want to be able to treat the infrastructure as code, as an endpoint, to be able to talk to it with an API. They don't want to actually have to go out, rack stuff up every time, do things manually. And that means it's really good for things like the DevOps environments or next generation applications, things where you're need to spin up something very quickly, do some workloads, and drop that back down again. It can allow you to build a public or a private cloud type infrastructure, like very similarly on your site to the way some of the things have been done with Amazon. I have customers, for example, who've gone and built and tested infrastructure on Amazon and then brought that back into their own site using OpenStack to do those things as well. You can also, actually, the services are there that gives you new things you can't get from anywhere else. So, for example, you can actually, OpenStack has its own object storage service that's there as well. So it's not necessarily just an automation tool. It has things that it brings along that you can do inside it as well. And while I think it's unlikely right now, I don't think people are going to take their entire production environments, on VMware environments and those kind of things and put it all in. But I wouldn't rule it out. I'm seeing more and more customers do persistent applications, new applications underneath OpenStack with it as well. So those are some of the good use cases of why OpenStack I think is interesting. So some of the terminology around OpenStack then. So we talk about the OpenStack releases, and when you're having a conversation with a customer who's already deployed it, you're going to be talking about things like Icehouse, Havana, Juno, Kilo, those kind of things. Current release is Mitaka, and with OpenStack they have a release cadence of 2 main releases of stuff that they do a year. We talked then about Keystone a little bit before, so this is authentication and access control. Horizon is the UI. Neutron is something that controls the network underneath it. People often talk about various drivers and things in it as well being in the upstream, and the upstream is really where all the core code for OpenStack is deployed and built out and those kind of things as well. And they'll talk about distros or what distributions you're using. So guys like Red Hat, Mirantis, and those kind of guys provide you with a distribution, a packaged and supported version of OpenStack that you can deploy to increase your time there as well. And we'll talk about Cinder, Glance, those kind of things more in a minute. So what does a typical OpenStack deployment look like? So usually what people start off doing is they deploy some kind of provisioning server or some kind of provisioning environment that's going to be used then to kickstart and build the rest of the environment there as well. So that might be something as simple as a Linux box with a PXE boot on it as well. There are also tools provided by vendors like Red Hat and Mirantis with the Fuel product as well that can help kickstart and build all that. The provisioning server then usually starts by building the controller nodes where you're going to run your keystone, your authentication, your key services for OpenStack there as well. And you will then usually have the compute nodes underneath that. You may also have nodes dedicated to object storage. And also, in our case with SolidFire, we can put the SolidFire platform in and talk into that over those different networks. And with OpenStack, getting your networking right is one of the key things to being successful as well. Most people do tend to start off by building an entire greenfield network environment. It makes it much simpler to do that as well. It's not impossible to integrate it with the rest of your network, but a lot of the deployments I've seen people start from scratch. They use the software-defined networking within OpenStack to bring the flexibility that it's got, and that's a typical deployment that I see out there as well. And people can scale the controller nodes, the compute nodes as you go from there. You can start off by building OpenStack simply on a laptop or one server, just with one or two controller nodes initially, if you want. So why adopt OpenStack? And it's interesting that these are all conversations I have with customers. For lots of people, I think it's about avoiding vendor lock-in. So once you've built APIs, endpoints, and talking to those kind of things as well, you can switch between different proprietary APIs and services. The software itself usually comes at a lower cost, but you do have to think about the management overhead cost of it as well. Often you might need developers and those kind of things to be able to work with OpenStack. But I think the key thing is people want to be able to innovate much quicker. They can use OpenStack to get out there, build new services really quickly, reduce the load traditionally on operations people, which slows things down. One of my customers, it took them 5 to 6 weeks to build a test environment, which meant that their ability to innovate and build new mobile applications for the things that they were doing was just slowed right down. And OpenStack has enabled them to build things much quicker, to bring that release time down into 20 minutes or so, to get a new environment provisioned and built, to be able to test something as well. And I think that's one of the whys again, why people are looking at it and why they're adopting it. So, I'm a pre-sales guy by trade, and usually when I'm talking to people, I also think about discovery questions, things that I'm going to ask people. So I'm looking at people. Have you deployed it today? In which part of your environment is it? Is it in test and dev? Is it live? How fast is it growing? How many instances of projects have you already got within it? Because it gives me an idea of the challenges they might have, things that they might need me to go and solve. What are they looking to get from it as well? They're looking to get new kinds of agility, but those kind of some of the things we talked about on the previous slide. How are they going to do those things in as well? What do they see as the future for OpenStack? Are they looking to bring everything into OpenStack? Are you trying and bring legacy into it as well? But what are going to be the barriers to the adoption? And often you need to change the organization to match the changes within OpenStack. If you have split teams of network people and compute people and those kind of things, it's that change of bringing those people together to do that. And who is in their OpenStack ecosystem? Most people will tend to work with 2 or 3 core vendors to build that out. There's lots of those distribution vendors, as we talked about, guys like HP, Red Hat, Mirantis, very popular in those environments as well. What vendors are present? Have they made all of those choices? Can we help the customer out with those kind of things as well? There's also really cool solutions out there, things like Platform 9 and things like that as well, that you can build OpenStack environments really quickly on your site as well. And are they going to use a systems integrator to build it together? Am I going to go and work with someone to help them build that environment? And how many staff on OpenStack do they actually have within the environment? It kind of gives you an idea of how committed they actually are to doing OpenStack and working with it, because it does need a change. So one of the key bits with OpenStack is that it brings a lot of software-defined parts and things like that as well. And there's lots of different storage considerations that you want for OpenStack, and each type of storage has its own merits. And some things excel at specific use cases. You might be looking to use gear that you already own. And the key question though for me is: are you going to spend money and save time, or are you going to spend time to save money? So buying a vendor-built solution can help you deploy and build that out as well. And then some of the things I think to go and think about, how is your environment going to scale in the future? How proven with OpenStack is it? What customers and things have they got? How are you going to deal with performance challenges and noisy neighbors in a really massive multi-tenant environment? And are the vendors doing third-party integration testing, and what kind of community contribution are they actually making back into OpenStack itself? So with SolidFire, we plug into something called the Cinder framework, and this is usually used for performance storage. And it has a plug-in architecture with multiple vendor backends. There's a default reference implementation of the Cinder driver that's there. But the idea is it gives you a consistent API regardless of the backend backend storage that's there as well. So you can bring in lots of different storage environments and treat them all the same with the same API framework. It really achieves some cool stuff in that whatever you've got, you can probably bring that in, plug that in. And there's something like 84, 85 different drivers that are out there for different vendors bringing that in. You can all put underneath Cinder. So why SolidFire? Why would you want to look at SolidFire for Cinder block storage? And the great thing that we bring is really all of the features of the SolidFire stuff, and we bring it in within OpenStack. You can coexist and use SolidFire alongside existing applications. The thing that we're known for, though, is the simplicity and the depth of integration that we have in here as well. And I think it really is the easy button for OpenStack storage in terms of 5 lines in a config file, you're integrated, all of the stuff that SolidFire does, like quality of service, snapshots, those kind of things, are all integrated into that as well. And it gives you a lot of confidence when you're bringing people onto the platform and how that works as well. It allows you to scale seamlessly and succeed. So you can start very small and scale that out as you go. And we're validated at scale by guys like eBay, PayPal, and others within that environment. And we also work with lots of different partners in this space as well. So guys like Red Hat, Rackspace, who can actually deliver you a private cloud environment and actually a managed cloud environment. Guys like Mirantis, things like that. Names that we're known there as well within that environment. And we're used to working with large OpenStack environments. So regardless of whether you're looking at new storage or not, you can try and integrate those things and bring them into it. So that's the presentation today. I hope that's given you a bit of an overview and a bit of a background on OpenStack. I'm Andy Roberts. If I can ever help you with a project or anything like that, please get in touch. And thank you.